Hello, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to our first Open Room Live. I want to tell you a little bit about Open Room and why we're going live today. Normally, Open Room is either a closed community or an event, a live event. And today marks our first live event online. And that is in celebration of World or International Listening Day. International Listening Day was actually on Friday, and it's a day every year when we celebrate the power of listening. It was created in America, so it's specifically created to be the day after Thanksgiving. So when you've been celebrating the year gone by and spending time with your families, International Listening Day is a day where we all get together and listen and really improve our listening skills. For those of you that don't know me and what I do, my name is Mimi. I'm the founder of Empathy Everywhere, and Empathy Everywhere is the founding organization behind Open Room. We created Open Room as a platform to enable open sharing, open listening, communication, to overcome loneliness and create connections by driving the understanding of empathy into our world. Open Room started back in July this year with a live event in South Africa, in Cape Town, where we got together to hear stories and share stories. You can find more about Open Room on Instagram at Open Room Global. It then traveled to Sri Lanka in September, and we had our second Open Room live event there, seeing 4 new people come to the stage and share their stories and their realities with the audience. And today, in November, just before we reach the end of the year, this is our first live event online. Open Room is brought to you fundamentally by Empathy Everywhere and by our community group, which I'm going to pop up on the screen now and share with all of you in case you might like to join us. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Open Room. So Open Room, hello Bushra, nice to see you, hi. Open Room is our community group. It is an open group, an open room that you can join across Instagram and WhatsApp. You can see a QR code there. If you're not a member, you can click and join us there. The goal of Open Room is to share stories, to share content, to share inspiration and tips, all about empathy. And empathy, which is fundamentally driven by listening, is what we're going to be talking about today. Exciting news for the group is, as of today, we have created that open community with the platform and forum to be able to share your thoughts. So Open Room on WhatsApp used to be a one-way conversation. We were broadcasting content similar to Instagram broadcast groups, but as of today, it's open. So please come join us, share your thoughts, ask questions, tell us what you want to see more of, speak to each other, and make friends. We are going to be sharing lots more on there. We have a movie club coming up in January. We have new entertainment pieces we're going to be sharing and plenty of stories and content. But today is all about listening in celebration of International Listening Day. And I'm going to be sharing just a little snippet of some of the content that I'm working with organizations around the world here with you in Open Room so that you can get access to that training, to some of the modules that Empathy Everywhere is bringing around the world, and training with organizations like Coca-Cola, Unilever, various large government groups, the Metropolitan Police Service, Pfizer, GlaxoSmithKline, you name it, and we've probably trained them. Empathy is definitely rising. So why is listening so important? Let me take you through some slides. And of course, as we go, feel free to comment, to ask questions. My team is here putting everything on the screen live. So if you've got questions, I will stop and ask them. And do feel free to join in at any time and share your comments, share your feedback. I would love to know that there is someone out there listening as I talk about listening. So as I said, we're here to celebrate National Day of Listening, which was actually on Friday. But on Friday, I was on a plane, so I couldn't be live with you all. Here on Monday to talk about why listening matters and how you can be using it in your lives and in your work to significantly build your relationships. Why do I believe in this? I believe in this because of this statement, and I probably say this statement every day all around the world, which is this: the more the world talks about empathy, the more empathy the world will have. And as I've said, empathy is fundamentally driven by listening. To empathize, to understand, is to be able to take the perspective of another. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is by listening. So if we want to create more cohesion in our world, to overcome the gaps, that are dividing us, to overcome stereotypes and judgment that is out there separating our societies. We need listening to pull us back together. So the first thing I want to ask you as an audience is, why did you come? If you're here with us live today, or you're watching this on the recording, why did you come and join us? Why are you interested in listening? And I want to give you just a second in your homes, in your environments, to give a thought to that. Why does listening matter to you? How might it improve the work you're doing at work with your teams? Are you a leader or a manager? Do you have to have listening in the role that you're playing in the workplace, in your community, perhaps at your kids' schools, or with your children themselves? What is your goal for understanding more listening? And I'm going to give you just 30 seconds to absorb that question, perhaps take notes, write it in your phone, take a minute to consider, what's your goal for turning up today and learning about listening? If you want to share, do feel free to write it in the comments, write it as a question. We'll pop it up on the screen as well. But meanwhile, absorb that, think about that in your own world. Why are you keen on learning about listening today? Bushra, thank you so much for your reply. That's great to read, because you believe that listening is one of the best ways to connect people, parents, managers, and leaders. I agree too, Bushra. So you and I are in the exact same boat. Absolutely, it is a way to connect our people, to build our relationships, whether that's family or workplace or our communities around us. The next question I have for you as an audience is this: where do you rank yourself as a listener? If 1 is a poor listener and 10 is a brilliant listener, take a minute to think, where are you today? Are you at 1, 5, 8, 10? Be honest with yourselves. Write it down. If you want to share, do share it with me. We'll pop it up on the screen there. But this is really for you to consider for yourselves. Where do you think you sit? Now, the interesting thing about listening, and I consider myself a good listener, right? I probably put myself as a 10 some of the time. The thing about listening is it's a conscious skill set. You have to get better at it over time. And it can change depending on the context, the day, the environment, where you are, and how you are experiencing that moment. So being a good listener is not always consistent. Bushra, you are absolutely brilliant. Thank you for sharing your answer. 3.5. Don't put a Heidi face. I think many of us are probably somewhere between 3 and 5. And as I said, that changes based on the day that you are on, the moment that you are in, how you're feeling physiologically, health-wise, in your mind, right? What's going on around you? So take a note of your honest number today, between 1 and 10. And let's think about that as we go through some of the content that we've got ahead. I want to tell you all a story. I want to test your listening. I want you to imagine that you're a bus driver, and I'm going to tell you a story. You are driving your bus across the center of your hometown. At the first stop, an old lady gets on, and she's wearing a red jacket, and she moves right to the back of the bus. You carry on your journey, you notice her there, but at the next stop, 3 teenagers get on. They're raucous, they're noisy, they're playing some music, they're carrying a very large duffel bag. At the next stop, the old lady starts to get off, but she stays on for one more stop. And just as you get to your final destination, 3 more people pop on, 2 mums and a child, and they sit at the front. But here's the question for you, everyone. How old is the bus driver? Does anybody know the answer? If you know, put it in the comments or write it just down to yourself. How old was the bus driver? Now, I know, because I do this exercise all around the world every week, nearly all of you will have got it wrong or will have said, I don't know. How am I supposed to know how old the bus driver is, Mimi? Well, the answer is this. The age of the bus driver is your age, because the very first sentence that I said was, imagine you're a bus driver. But were you listening? Did you hear me say that? Again, my experience tells me from doing this around the world, probably not. You probably didn't hear. You are so focused on the story and the lady in the red jacket and the 3 teens with their bag and their music, you're not actually hearing the details of the story. Your brain is going off on autopilot somewhere else. So I use this to really bring to life this idea, which is that were you listening? Are you listening? Are you able to bring your attention to listening? What we know on this International Day of Listening is that good listening builds relationships. In fact, it does many more things than that. It builds our societies. It changes outcomes for businesses and communities and societies. So good listening builds all kinds of relationships and success drivers, whether that's your personal life or your professional life. It helps you get promoted. It helps you progress. It helps you become a brilliant boss or leader, or simply a teammate to others around you. What the data shows, what research shows, is people that feel heard, that feel listened to, progress more. They achieve their objectives more quickly. They stay in their roles for longer. And that's partly because of the improved psychological safety and trust that you build when you listen to people. So people that listen to each other progress more together. So good relationships are built on listening. I love this quote by Bernard Burch, and he said, of all the successful CEOs I've known, all of them are the ones who do more listening than talking, right? So the leaders that are out there really making ripples and changing things are the ones that hear you, that listen to their teams and their staff. So listening is really important. You've tested your listening this morning with the bus exercise. You've ranked yourself between 1 and 10, and you've established why you might be here and why perhaps listening or learning to listen better is good for you and interesting to you. So I want you to do one more little exercise for yourself. If you are in a workplace, this can be somebody at work. If you are not working currently, or you're staying home, or you run a startup, or you're in your own sort of startup phase, it can be somebody outside of the workplace. But what I want you to do is consider someone in your life, in your past, who you consider to have been a great listener. Could be your mum, could be your boss, could be a teammate, could be your dog. But consider someone who is a great listener, and then think about this for a moment. What impact did they or do they have on how you feel and work today? So when there's someone in your life that you feel is a great listener, check it out. How do you feel when they listen to you? I'm going to give you just a couple of seconds. Write that down, take notes, pop it in your phone. How do you feel when someone really listens to you? If you want to share your answers, pop them in the comments. We'll pop them up on the screen for others to learn from. I'm going to put up some thoughts from my side just now, but I want to give you just a few more minutes to think about this for you. Okay, so whatever words you might have in your space, on your phone, on your notebook, here are 6 of those responses that I hear over and over again all around the world, regardless of culture, organization size, sector that I do these workshops in. I feel heard, I feel loyal, I feel trusted, I feel valued, motivated, and respected. Okay? These are big things. Imagine a world when you don't have those things. Okay? And it reminds you how critical this is. When you listen to people, when you feel heard, you feel like you matter. You feel like people are valuing you, that they respect you, that they care, right? And because of that, you feel motivated, you feel loyal, whether that's in your personal life or your business life, okay? So listening is hugely important because these words are big words for human beings, right? They are changing how people are turning up in work and in life. And imagine how many lives you can change, or people's days you can change just by listening a little more, right? If you can make people feel motivated, respected, and trusted by listening, then surely the whole world should listen a little more. So I promised to give you some tips today from the Open Room community. As I said at the beginning, and then we'll pop the QR code up again at the end. Open Room is an open community. It's totally free. It always will be. It's there for you guys, okay? Open Room is a platform where you can come and join, have conversation, take away tips, training, infographics, inspiration, courses, and content, all for free. Why? Because we want to create more empathy in the world. People have told me that if you give things away for free, people don't value them. I don't agree, okay? I think that creating more empathy in our world is so important. We have to give it away for free, right? We have to spread this as far and wide and make it as accessible and as equitable as possible. Hence the name Open Room. It is literally open for everyone at any time. So here are 5 top tips from Open Room, from the community, for free today for you to tap into and hopefully use in your work and in your life. So the question I want you to think about surrounding these tips is this. Ask yourself, are you listening to reply or to understand? Okay, this is a big question and it's an important one, and I talk about it all the time. Okay, it's very, very different. Hearing something and listening to something are 2 very different things. Okay, empathy, active listening, really listening to someone, allows you to tap into, to demonstrate your ability to take the perspective of somebody else, to proactively identify with them, with their reality. Importantly, listening, empathy, not about agreement, not about judgment. You don't have to like it. You have to listen, right? You are stepping into the world of somebody else so that you can imagine. Empathy is driven by imagination. It's part of the prefrontal cortex in your brain. So you can imagine the reality of someone else. Why do they feel the way they do? Why are they behaving the way they do? Why are they suddenly late all the time or quiet all the time? Why do they never get the PowerPoint deck right? Or why do they never turn up when you ask them to? Okay? Empathy is the ability to take that perspective. To get there, you have to listen, because simply hearing isn't enough. We hear things all day. In fact, in my background now, I can hear things. I can hear traffic. I can hear rain. I'm in Malaysia, Southeast Asia. It's always raining in the afternoon. I can hear my child outside in my house. I can hear somebody's in the kitchen cooking. I can hear pans, right? But I'm not listening to them. But can I hear them? Yes. Okay. But that's a critical difference here. We're not talking about what you can hear. We're talking about what you are listening to. So that is the key difference. I want to try something. I've never tried this on StreamYard. It may or may not work. I want to see if this sound file plays. No, it doesn't. But this sound file, what it is it's the sound of an aeroplane in the background. So fundamentally, the sound that this sound file makes is like this. All the time, right? Imagine getting on an aeroplane, okay? When the engines first go on and you take off, it's really loud, right? For everyone that's ever been on an airplane. For a few seconds, maybe 30 seconds, it's really loud. And then suddenly it's gone. The aeroplane sound hasn't changed. You have adapted to the sound, okay? You go on to sleep, eat, have conversations, walk up and down the aisle for the next, say, 12 hours on that plane, but you don't hear that loud noise that you heard in takeoff for the other 12 hours. You adapt to it. You can hear it, but you are not listening to it anymore, okay? So this is the difference between hearing and listening. It's the amount of active attention that you're actually taking to gather insight. So that's what I say on this slide. Hearing and listening, definitely not the same thing. Hearing is the act of perceiving sound. It's involuntary. Your brain does it. If you have actively working ears, you will hear things, okay? Listening is a selective activity. You choose to use your listening skills, right? To actually decode sound, noises into meaning, really understanding what people are saying. So I promise you 5 tips. Here's number 1 to better listening. How do you become a better listener? The first is to remove distractions, okay? Phones, laptops, TV, music, whatever's going on around you, okay? Research shows that even the presence of a phone on the table changes the quality of a conversation, right? Because it's there, because you can see it or feel it vibrating, okay? Remove distractions. The first tip to really hearing someone is to remove everything else so you can focus on what's being said. And this is as relevant with your boss as it is with your team, as it is with your kids, okay? If you want them to listen to you more, remove the distractions for them, especially if you have young children, okay? Take that away, allow them to focus, because listening takes focus. So tip 1 is remove distractions from the workplace or your environment. Tip 2, don't interrupt, okay? Easier said than done. Let people finish their sentences. Let them finish their thought. Let them communicate their side of the discussion, debate, or even argument. Okay? Don't interrupt people. Let them say their full piece. Show them that you are listening. I'm going to talk about this in the third and fourth tip. But show them you're listening with your body, with your eyes. Perhaps lean in a little. Nod occasionally, okay? But don't interrupt. Show people that you are actively interested in what they have to say, and then let them complete that thought. So tip 2, don't interrupt. Tip 3, show curiosity. If listening is the backbone to empathy, then curiosity is the backbone to listening, okay? In order to show curiosity, I just put 2 really useful questions on the slide here to share with you. One is, tell me more about that. And the other is a question like, so what happened next? Okay? Show people that you're curious, that you're interested. When they're telling a story, perhaps they come to a pause or a point in the conversation where they slow down or they finish their sentence. Lean in, show curiosity, ask them questions. If you are not curious, how are you ever going to understand? In some cultures around the world, we're brought up being told not to ask too many questions, right? To listen, not to ask. But if you don't inquire, how will you ever be able to truly know you've listened? So, of course, we've said, don't interrupt. Let people finish their sentence. But when they do, show curiosity to understand more. Ask them to tell you more about it. How did they get there? Why do they think that? Why do they believe that they got to the place that they did? And Bushra, you are not alone. That is nearly everyone's biggest flaw, right? Interrupting. It's very easy to do, particularly when our brains are moving so fast. And perhaps in the next open room, we might talk about tips to slow down our brains in that environment. But the very simple one I would give you right now is to take a breath. Okay? If you feel that your brain is running away and you can't slow down and stop those interruptions, really focus on your breathing. Take a few deep, slow breaths. It will calm your nervous system and enable you to listen better. Tip number 4, summarize and clarify. When someone does finish what they are saying, when they finish talking to you out there in the world, 2 ways to do this. First of all, summarize what they've said. Tell them, Mimi, what I heard you say was X and Y and Z. And then clarify by asking them, have I missed anything? Or did I miss anything? Or did I reflect that correctly? Okay, so take the time to show the person that you were actively listening, that you were interested in what they said, and give them the opportunity to correct you if you didn't get it right, to add information, to give you supplementary information, to finish their thought. Not only does it enable you to ensure you listened accurately, but it gives them the opportunity to confirm that they were being heard and that you are accurately reflecting what they had to say. It makes them feel valued and it allows them to share additional insight. It makes sure that both the listener and the person being listened to is getting across accurate information. So, tip number 4, summarize and clarify. And the final one, be comfortable with silence. This is probably one of my biggest themes at the moment while I'm training around the world. I often talk about the power of a pause, okay? And I also teach people about the 3-second pause. So when someone is sharing story, information, content with you, when they finish, give them 2 to 3 seconds of a pause before you respond, okay? What it does is it allows the person speaking to feel that you're paying attention, but it allows you to let your brain absorb the final thought that they said. Sometimes we're so fast to jump in and respond, we don't take that 2 or 3 second pause just to ensure that we have absorbed what they were saying. Also, as I said, make sure that that speaker feels that you were listening, right? That you weren't just ready to suddenly respond and react to what they were saying. So be comfortable with silence. The other thing that often happens when you're comfortable with silence is that people might carry on. They might say, oh, and I also want to tell you, actually, I have something more to add. Okay. So in that moment of silence, not an uncomfortable one, we're talking 2 or 3 seconds, you allow yourself to absorb, the speaker to be heard, and the speaker to add any further information if they want to do so. So my fifth tip is to be comfortable with silence, to recognize the power of a pause. I want to give you the chance now to reflect on what can stop you doing those things, right? What can stop you listening, stop you respecting the power of silence, or stop you from interrupting, enable you to listen better? I want to give you just a minute, to think about this question. I would love to have a discussion. So if you're listening live, do put any of your thoughts into the comments box. There is no wrong answer. There are a million things in hundreds of different cultures and contexts that can stop you from listening. If you want to share, please put it in the comment box and we will pop them up on the screen for other people to learn from. Otherwise, I'm just going to give you a little while to think about this in your own zone today, when you're at work, with your kids, in your home life, in the community. What stops you from listening? Okay, so any thoughts, do pop them over there in the comment box. What I know from listening to people all around the world is things that can stop you from listening are external distractions, right? So other things going on around you can be noise, can be excitement, can be entertainment. As Bushra says here, it can be because you're easily distracted, right? Especially if, as she says there, you're neurodivergent or you have difficulty focusing on one thing at a time. It can be physiological reasons. How are you feeling? You might be hungry, tired, thirsty, exhausted. Someone else says here, the desire first to be heard, to come across as a smart person in the room. We often talk about ego. Is your ego getting in the way of stopping you from listening? Are you trying to prove a point? Are you trying to get your opinion across? Are you feeling upset because you disagree with what that person is saying? Perhaps it's because you're anxious or nervous, so you jump in, you're not able to listen. Or perhaps it's because of high stress, so you have many other things going on. There are many reasons that you can find yourself hearing versus listening, that you are not listening well. But the session today in this little open room live is to really bring attention to the fact that when we do listen, you build your relationships. So listening, as I said, is the backbone to empathy. Once you have empathy, you can build understanding. If you don't empathize, how are you ever going to understand? I always say to my clients, we talk about diversity and inclusion and how important that is in the workplace, but how can you ever include anyone if you don't first understand? How can you understand if you don't use your empathy? And how can you empathize if you're not listening? So relationships and trust are built by listening. Listening is the first step to building or rebuilding relationships, to creating rapport, engagement, relationships, trust, and of course, conversation. So really today, on this International Day of Listening, in fact, we're a few days late, but in celebration of International Day of Listening, I wanted this first Open Room Global to come to you live and tell you a little bit about why we believe so much in listening, why it's so important to create more listening in the world. The more conflicted that the world becomes, the more we face turmoil, conflict, even war. The reality is to find peace, to find engagement, to find connection, to overcome the things that divide us, to overcome stereotypes and stigmas, judgment and bias. The way for us to fill those gaps is to listen first. At Empathy Everywhere, our goal is to create a more understanding, connected world. And as I said, Open Room, which is our community, our open community, free to join, free to be there. The whole point of an open room is for it to be open to everyone, to be totally inclusive. Just scan the QR code that's on the screen. You can come and join us. There's also links there to various other platforms that we're using. Get access to our training, our tips, our inspiration, and our learning platform, and be part of our community. As of today, the WhatsApp group specifically is totally open for conversation. We want to listen to you and we want you to listen to each other. If you want to find out a little bit more about what we're doing, you can find me at Mimi Nicklin on Instagram, here on LinkedIn, or via empathyeverywhere.co, which talks about our courses and our content and how we're working with the corporate world. For now, I want to leave just a couple of breaths to see if there are any questions. If you do have them, do put them in the chat box now. I will pop them up and I will answer them for you live. If not, feel free to reach out to me. You can email me at sayhello@miminicklin.com or via LinkedIn or via Instagram at Mimi Nicklin. So if you do have questions, feel free to reach out or come and join us in Open Room via the QR code that's on the screen. Come and join us. And you can ask them there. We are there, all the time, answering questions, engaging with our community. If there are any questions, do let us know in the chat box now. I'm going to answer them live before I shut down and turn off for the day and celebrate listening in my own life and household. So any questions, do pop them in the chat box. I'm going to give you just a couple more seconds to type them in if you have any. Otherwise, I will log off and listen to my family. Right, I am going to leave it there. Thank you for joining, for being here with us on International Day of Listening, for talking about listening and the power of listening and how important it is in our workplaces and in our world. Do come join us in Open Room, come and ask questions and be part of the revolution to create more empathy out there in the world, because we believe in this. The more the world talks about empathy, the more empathy the world will have. And there has never been a time when we need empathy more than now. Bye, everyone.